Hey everybody, it's tafony here once again, and today's rambling about is going to be on the Befaco Pony VCO. It is a 26, 24, at least in my case it is a 1U module. It is an oscillator. It is something of a nice utilitarian one at that. It is analog based, but before we get into all the details, I just want to give the quick housekeeping a run through. So I'm not affiliated with Befaco. This isn't sponsored or anything like that. I purchased this Pony VCO new, I believe, with my own money for sure. It isn't journalism. This isn't sponsored or anything. I'm not trying to assess it for you or sell it to you or anything like that. I'm just trying to do a video blog of sorts on my journeys with hardware synthesizers. And more importantly than all of that, it sounds like this. We're going to start out here, and what I do definitely appreciate on board on the Pony VCO is the PWM and octave shifts. That actually, the octave shifts is something that Pony VCO was one of my first oscillators, and I just assumed that they all, like, maybe, I don't know if I assumed that they all had octave shifts, but it is something that you really take for granted when you go to other ones, that you don't have to do some changing of the octave or pitch shifting or compensation on the side of the sequencer, when you can just come in here and cycle through them. And if I could just say that this square wave, and it'll let you make the pulse width out of, I guess, I don't know if you say the pulse width like leaves audio territory or, you know, too thin to be heard, I guess. I don't know what the word for that is, but there's no limit here on the timbre knob, so. But there are fat basses to be had in here. Yeah. Yeah. So we're in the full range mode. You get full range of these octaves. It gets crazy. It doesn't quite get down to LFO territory, but if you want to do that, you take your switch all the way up to LFO, and now we can no longer hear it. Well, you might hear some popping at the highest octave, but yeah, LFO, first octave. So this, I don't really so first octave versus full octave. Sorry for the ear damage. No, LFO mode now, so first. Full? Oh, it is a little different. Interesting. So 1 oct? Oh, you know what? Sorry. Forgive me. This octave switch isn't the same. It is, so LFO range is on the knob. So LFO can be pushed into audio territory by use of the frequency knob, excuse me, and the octave knob. But then the first, this is like, sorry, so it'll switch a range on the knob, so I can still select my octave, but changing this is kind of like a fine tune, right? So there's no fine tune knob, but you can use it in that mode. So, again, I love PWM. I don't know, maybe that's just like a bald British guy thing that we're all inclined. So then this one you get a full octave, and this one you just get the full range. You can spam the octave switching. Yeah. So, you know, for simplicity, I'm going to stick to the first. No, 1 octave. So it has LFO capabilities. You don't need me to demo them, I don't think. We're here for the audio territory stuff, and I know, ironically, like, I use this as an LFO quite often, but you know, it's an oscillator. It does what it says on the tin, but it would be kind of dull to demonstrate maybe on the oscilloscope LFO stuff. So I think for the sake of doing it on the video, let's go through it at this audio rate. So we have our square wave. I love how this sounds, and maybe this is just like the most basic square wave, but maybe I just love how a basic square wave sounds. So we have our saw E looking waveform there. The timbre in this case is going to do some wave shaping, which is a very neat thing to have on board in such a, you know, basic oscillator, right? Got our triangle wave and our sine wave. Now again, the sine wave like quickly becomes similar to those other waveforms when you add some wave folding, right? But let's bring it up an octave. It's nice. Sine waves, I don't know, for whatever reason, just my setup, I always seem short on sine waves, so it's nice to have that one. So let's get into some modulation stuff. So I'm going to take a triangle output from the VCO, and we're going to modulate the, here, let's back my camera up so you can see what it's doing. I'm just going to modulate the timbre, so you know it's doing this basically, but if we start off a little higher, so lots of exploring really to be done in such a simple module, you know? I like that a lot. Like, that's a pretty complex waveform for what seems like a utilitarian module, right? So let's go into the triangle wave, doing some timbre into this. Oh, they're going to crucify me in the chat. I think this is actually called ramp wave, right? It's not quite a super saw until you fold it into being one, right? So now PWM in the square wave. I love PWM. Let's, if we set a minimum here by, and yeah, maybe I want some either slew or attenuation of that LFO in this case, but I loves doing wheelies. I loves this. So yeah, that sounds so good. All right, let's get into doing through 0 FM, which is kind of another like crazy thing to see on something like this, right? So set an audio rate, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, through 0 FM on square waves is actually kind of unusual. So that's a pretty like deep thing for, you know. My face is lighting up, and we haven't even added a filter yet. That's a pretty deep thing for something that's kind of supposed to be utilitarian, right? So yeah. Through 0 FM on square wave. Now let's go into the ramp wave. No wave shaping. Let's bring in some timbre. These actually sound pretty good, and I haven't done the filter yet, so we are going to do a filter in a moment, but we got through 0 FM on the triangle wave now. Bring in some wave shaping. Vibrato, tremolo, I guess, at the LFO rate, bring it into audio rate. This is what I'm here for when I think through 0 FM. Somebody described through 0 FM, I didn't really get it earlier, and someone described it to me as like glitching your oscillator, like forcing it to make different noises by like tricking the FM input with audio stuff. And I don't know how accurate that is, but I think that's kind of a fun way to look at it and kind of made it appeal more to me. Because when I was trying to learn FM, I was just kind of doing this, like, why do I want this? What's the point? And it's like, oh, well, this is the point. So, basic sine wave, I don't know how often I would use that on its own, but if we're FMing it, it can get crazy. It can become its own interesting thing. Now, if we fold it, let's starts to sound kind of like our friend the Bryn, so heck, I might have to do some low-pass gate demoing of this one too. So, with that being said, let's show the VCA that's on board. So, another really appreciated thing, I guess. I always feel like, I don't know why, you know, there's that cliche in modular, like, you can never have enough VCAs, and I sort of wonder, like, so if you plug this in, VCA is activated. If you unplug it, it is deactivated. Very nice. I was worried when I got this that we would be in some sort of territory where, how do you say, you would need to like reboot after you unplugged it when it's activated or something like that, but that is not the case. I appreciate that. Anyway, back to what I was saying about was the lack of VCAs in Eurorack, that they say you can never have enough VCAs, and yet every module that I would expect them to have, whether it be like envelope generators, I know lots of them do have it, but I'm always like, why doesn't every envelope generators have a VCA? I mean, obviously it's space and money and considerations and all that stuff, but it just seems like Pony VCO, like, yeah, that you're gonna need a VCA, so why not have one on board? I mean, you're not gonna need it because you've already bought VCAs, because every freaking module doesn't come with them, but you know what I'm trying to say, right? So, yeah. It just seems like every module should have a VCA. You can never have enough VCAs. Okay, so now we are sending VCA input. We're sending it a short little envelope from the WMD Javelin. You know, I guess maybe the reason in a way as well is you just want, some people want, you can transform your envelopes into being not linear but logarithmic on the VCA side. So if that's a consideration for you, maybe that's the reason why people, you know, don't want to do it. Okay, now we've got our envelope going in the VCA. It's not overly exciting, but let's send our pitch. And we're starting to sound like a actual synth voice. Now that is too high, so let's go down an octave. Again, I really like having that. This is usually a situation where I'm like, oh god, I have to like shift things on the side of the sequencer. Not the case with the Pony VCO, so much appreciated. Let's go in and get over to our square wave. Pulse width. Oh, yeah. Alright, now I'm going to do some filtering before we get into doing it too much because, you know, high pass. Yeah, I really enjoy that. So, I demonstrated the VCA, and just for the sake of my patch, I need my inputs back, so we're going to send that VCA into the WMD Javelin, which again, I appreciate has a VCA on board. But I need my envelope output for control of my filter, so we're going to do a little bit of filter sweep, and just to roll off a little bit of the harshness on the high end, so yeah. I'm going to slow this down a hair just so it's, you know, filter it out. Okay, now we want to take an LFO from the Brenso again, and we're going to modulate that timbre. So again, I'm trying to do a very, very simple, straightforward modulation source, but I just want to show, like, I love how the PWM sounds on this thing. So nice. Yeah, and then oscillator sync. I don't think it's gonna... Here, if we bring this up to audio rate, does it? Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna dive too deep into that. You know what sync is if you're here, but let's do through 0 FM. I don't know. There's some cool sounds in here. Bring in some resonance. Sweep it. Yeah. Alright, different wave shapes. That was square. This is our ramp wave. Let's go down an octave. It just sounds good. I mean, you know what a ramp wave sounds like on its own, but it's good. Timbre. If we modulate that timbre, maybe not at audio, right? Again, I always have this conversation with everyone I know in modular that, like, why wouldn't I want synced LFOs for this reason, right? Do I want this drift to be off time? And you're going to say yes, and I'm going to say not in this case. But, yeah, through 0 FM. Yeah. Alright, triangle wave. FM it. Renzo's feeling jealous. Timbre. Renzo's really feeling jealous. I mean, it's in there. It's in there for sure. Timbre modulation. These are the pieces. These are the pieces for complex oscillator. Sine wave through 0 FM, our sine. That's cool. Yeah. So, I mean, what else would you want on the Pony VCO? I don't know. Like, a sub output might be cool, but, like, I don't know. These are limitations. If you get the 3U version, I think it's like 4 HP, like, that's tremendously small. I mean, if you think about it, the fact that it fits in a 1U row in this case is very cool. Yeah, they're just like, what do you want? And I don't know. This is everything you need. It's a you know, utilitarian, super useful triangle core, I believe, oscillator. It is, you know, it's everything you need. Yeah. What else is there to say about it? I don't think there's much else to say other than to demo it. So, I'm Tafony. I appreciate you watching it. I hope you're having a wonderful holiday season. I'll take care, and I will talk to you soon.